Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point on AFR Talk, the American Family Radio Talk Network. I am Brian Fisher, your host. Welcome you to the conversation, 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840, free for all Friday. We'll talk about anything that you want to talk about. Now, we haven't been able to get to clips, so let's dive into some clips. Here is this is clip number one, a former Obama administration economic advisor. His name is Jared Bernstein. And he, even though he's with the Obama administration, there's no recovery going on, ladies and gentlemen. 25 to 54-year-olds, same employment level that they were in 1997, 15 years, no gain. And that's a heartbreak to me because these are men in the prime of their life. They have families to feed, families to build, and they're the ones that are having trouble finding a decent paying job. It just breaks my heart to think about what this economy has done and what the policies coming out of this administration have done. But Jared Bernstein, he's telling the truth. The question is, how do you get an unemployment rate that drops when you have people losing jobs? How does the unemployment rate go down when people are losing jobs? Here's what he had to say.
A couple of things jump out at me. First of all, this looks like one of those months where the gains in unemployment, the reduction in the rate, comes more from a decline in the labor force than more jobs.
Yeah.
From what the employment on the household side looks like it didn't grow at all, which is actually fairly consistent with the past 2 months being a large positive outliers.
So the employment on the household side didn't grow at all. So it said 146,000 jobs were created, 122,000 people fewer working this month than last. What happened? 540,000 people just disappeared. They dropped off the stat sheet altogether. That's why it looks like the unemployment numbers actually came down. There is no recovery going on. Now, you've had this business. We played the sound bites. President Obama wants unilateral authority to raise the debt ceiling anytime that he wants to. So, and Mitch McConnell said, okay, well, let's vote on that. Nancy Pelosi wants it. Harry Reid wants it. Barack Obama wants it. So you got the minority leader in the House. You have the majority leader in the Senate. You got the president. They all want him to have unilateral authority to raise the debt ceiling. So Mitch McConnell says, fine, let's vote on it. And Harry Reid says, not on your life, because he knows that it would get shot down by the Democrats and they would look bad. So he's asked about this at a press availability yesterday. Here's Jay Carney talking about the Senate Democrats voting down the Senate Democrats hosing off the president's own economic plan. Let's listen.
I understand that there's a lot of, this is the kind of, political games that aren't serious, that, it is absolutely the case that we need to have a serious proposal, a serious negotiation about the serious issues, spending cuts and the like, that will require a compromise. The fact that...
Why is it a game to put the president's plan on the floor? Yeah, do you think you have Democratic support?
We know that, and the filibuster is certainly an issue here, that we don't have 60 votes in the Senate. So I would not argue with the idea that the president's proposal cannot, at this time, or has not at this time, garnered Republican support. That's what this debate is about.
So Jay Carney, he's saying, look, this is political games. And the reporter says, why is it a game if this is what the president wants? This is what Nancy Pelosi wants. This is what Harry Reid wants. And Mitch McConnell calls for a vote on what they want. How in the world is that a political game? And then he admits, look, we don't have the votes for this thing. He says we don't have 60 votes. They don't have 51 votes. They're not even going to be able to get Democrats. There are a lot of Democrats that were pretty hinky about that whole idea of giving the president unilateral authority to raise the debt ceiling anytime that he wanted. Now, Jay Carney talking about this whole issue of deficit reduction, because we got a $16 trillion deficit. Something's got to be done about that. And Jay Carney says, look, we're not even concerned about that right now. Let's listen.
Which is that the president won't accept a bad deal. He will not accept a deal that doesn't include rates rising for the top 2%. This is a debate that we had at length for more than a year. It's something that he's been enormously clear about. And his insistence on that is based on sound policy, not on, a simple desire to have rates go up. It's because we need that to happen as part of a balanced package that achieves this $4 trillion deficit reduction goal. And that's an important number, because the whole, again, deficit reduction in and of itself is not the goal here.
So there's Jay Carney saying, look, deficit reduction, that's not our goal. That's not our mission. We don't care about the deficit. We're not trying to do anything about the deficit. We don't care about the deficit. We're not interested in reducing the deficit. That simply is not our goal. What our goal is to raise tax rates on upper income earners, on job creators. I mean, this is where John Boehner played the soundbite yesterday. He talked about we're going to get the money in our proposal from the rich. $800 billion tax increase. We're going to get it from the rich. And I just want to beat my head against the wall. Speaker Boehner, stop talking about the rich. These are not the rich. They are job creators. Talk about a tax hike on job creators. Talk about taking money out of the wallets of job creators, because that's what's going on here. And Jay Carney says, look, what this whole thing is about for them is tax rates, increasing tax rates. They don't want revenue, because John Boehner says, look, we'll get you $800 billion of revenue just by capping deductions. We'll get you the revenue you say you got to have. Remember, Barack Obama last year, 2011, says, hey, we can get $1.2 trillion without raising tax rates. We can do it by eliminating capping deductions. And so Boehner says, good, we'll do it your way. We'll cap deductions, get you $800 billion. And Obama says, no, I'm not interested in revenue. I want the rates to go up because I want to punish job creators, and I want to make sure that America sees that that's what I'm doing. I don't want this some kind of vague deal where it's not clear that I'm making them pay and I'm sticking it to the man. I want everybody to see that I am sticking it to the man. The only way to do that is to raise their rates. I could care less about the revenue. I don't care about deficit reduction. I want to stick it to the man. I want to stick it to the job creators. Now, Chuck Todd, this is clip 4. Listen to what Chuck Todd says about what Obama believes if something isn't done. Remember, President Obama, he's jetting off to Hawaii. He's going to spend a $4 million vacation. He's not interested in any kind of negotiation. You heard Jay Carney. If it doesn't involve tax rates, we're not interested. We're not even coming to the table. No point in even talking to us. We're not interested in dialogue, not interested in negotiation unless it involves increasing tax rates. And here's what Chuck Todd says about what Obama knows.
No, he truly believes in the cliff. He has been he is getting economic warnings from his own team that say, don't believe the Congressional Budget Office, who's kind of rosy about this, right? Who says, yeah, it would be a tough 2013 if we went over the cliff and everything went in, but things would get better. He is getting updates that say, no, we will go into recession.
So Chuck Todd's saying, look, the president knows if they don't do anything, we are going to go into a recession. He knows that going over the fiscal cliff means we go into a recession. And he's still going to jet off December 17 for a $4 million vacation in Hawaii, which, by the way, is an enormous inconvenience to the people that live around there because they can't even use their ski-doos. I mean, the beach is blocked off. The streets are blocked off. And meanwhile, he's not here to participate in any kind of negotiations. Now, here's Rick Santelli. I love this guy. This is a guy that started the Tea Party. And he's talking here in this little soundbite about what Barack Obama believes the debt ceiling is and what it is like. Let's listen.
But for today, Toy Story, I like the movies, but I never thought to infinity and beyond would be the phrase to describe debt ceiling. The debt ceiling was born of the Second Liberty Act of 1917. Financing our entry into World War I had issues, but ultimately it wasn't until 1939 that the current debt ceiling law really was born with an actual limit. And since then, obviously, there's been many documented violations. But in the end, many believe that it isn't so much a violation to have a debt ceiling, it would be a violation not to. Listen to our president yesterday.
The only thing that the debt ceiling is good for as a weapon is to destroy your credit rating.
I beg to differ, Mr. President. To me, I understand the use of it as a weapon, but to me, the real problem isn't the debt ceiling, it's the debt. The debt is the problem.
And so Rick Santelli is exactly right. The debt ceiling is not the problem here. The debt is the problem. And Jim DeMint said, look, I'm not with Boehner. I'm not with this business about this $800 billion tax increase. And the way Jim DeMint put it, this government doesn't need more money. This country needs less government. That's Jim DeMint, now heading up the Heritage Foundation. This government doesn't need more money. This country needs less government. Well, let's go to the phones. Let's go to John in Tampa, Florida. John, you're on Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian. Just your thoughts on what Boehner did the other day. He kicked off a few Tea Party members from select committees.
Yeah.
I think one of those. I mean, I think you're right. It seems like he's starting to make a left turn a little bit, I think.
Yeah, and you know, he's getting quite a bit of backlash for that. People not happy that he threw these conservatives off. The guys that he threw off, the main guys, had 91 and 92% ratings with the Heritage Foundation action. These guys were genuine, true blue conservatives. And I talked about this yesterday, but, you know, it only takes 16 Republican votes to keep John Boehner from being reelected as the Speaker. If 16 Republicans, when they convene in January, the Speaker's got to be selected by the entire House of Representatives. If 16 Republicans just abstain from the vote, they don't have to vote against Boehner because they're not going to vote for Nancy Pelosi. All they got to do is abstain. I mean, do what Barack Obama did 138 times in the Illinois Senate. Just vote present. Don't take a stand. Just abstain. If just 16 Republicans do that, John Boehner cannot be reelected as the Speaker of the House. And they would have to get somebody in his chair that actually could do it. You know, and Jim DeMint has been openly critical of Speaker Boehner. He said, I am not with Boehner on that $800 billion tax increase. 888-589-8840 number to call. We'll take more of your calls coming out of the break. You remember that clip I played the other day from the councilwoman in Detroit? You remember, they're going bankrupt. They're going out of business because they've been so botched by Democrats for 40 years that they've gone completely bankrupt. Their history, lead story on Dredge today. We've been talking about it for some time. You can buy a house in Detroit for $1. That's how bad things are there. They're bulldozing about 25% of the town, just knocking down old buildings. They're talking about turning them into farms and stuff like that in Detroit. But anyway, there was a woman said, look, we voted for you, Obama. You owe us money. We voted for you, now give us money. It turns out that she's got some kind of sweetheart deal with the city where she lives in a house. I don't know what's valued at, but it is a well-kept brick Tudor-style home on the city's west side. She's paying $68 in property taxes because it has vanished. City records indicate that the parcel is an empty lot. She knew it. She didn't do anything about it. Glad to pay $68 a year. Focal Point AFR Talk.